Good morning, guys. All right, so I'm going to get us set up and go through the still life unit, basically from the start of our project to where we're going in the next few mini lessons. So our first thing that we were supposed to be doing was massing forms. So I had explained this for those of you that joined the Zoom session. We did, back in November, we looked at the 4 forms, which was the cube, the cylinder, the sphere, and the cone. Now, how can you look at everyday objects, right? So I just kind of looked at this bottle here, and I broke it down into the cylinder, which then can attach to this cone-like shape, then back into another cylinder, and then that transfers into the full object there. For this form here, another household object, again, you see it's cylinder, 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 different kinds of sizes of those cylinders, which then also goes into that cone-like edge. Then all of this then transfers to the final product. So that was step 1 for the massing forms part of this assignment. So after you massed your forms, you submitted that final drawing on the harbor. The next step of the project was to photograph a still life 3 different ways. So I'll show you my 3 different layouts for my still life. So I still have the same, actually this one has different products there. I still have the same objects in each photo, but I arranged them differently to kind of see which is going to be the best composition for my final drawing. Guys, so this assignment you were supposed to take your photographs, change up the layout, okay? So you notice it's the same 3 objects, but each time I kind of rearrange which way they go. I am going to be answering on the harbor to select which composition you should be using for your final piece. So for me, I'm actually going to go with this one for my final. So I would let you know that in your assignment by commenting, and once I do, you're going to use that one photo for the actual project. So after I give you that feedback and you select which one, or I select which composition you're going to use, you're going to have 2 different ways that you can be transferring your photo now, which is a taken picture, to the actual drawing of the still life, which is what you need to do. The options for the way you're going to do this is you can either use the 4-quadrant method, which is breaking your paper half vertically, half horizontally, so that you get those 4 quadrants there. Or you can go back to what we were using in our gridded portraits and use the grid method here, which I know some of you loved, some of you not so much. These are 1-by-1 boxes. So your 2 options on how to transfer this drawing are either going to be the 4-quadrant layout or the grid method, which is a 1-by-1 box on the photograph. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit on how to do both of those, just so we remember. So for the 4-by-4 quadrant, I'm going to put that example back up. You're going to take your photograph, you're going to take a ruler. I'm going to use a marker so you can see what I'm doing, but you obviously are going to do this in pencil. Regular pencil is fine. I'm going to measure horizontally the paper, and I'm going to find the halfway point. What is half of the measurement that's going there? And I'm going to mark it with a little tab. And I'm going to take that ruler, I'm going to turn it down vertically, and I'm actually going to draw the line down that line there. I'm going to then take my ruler again and find the halfway point of this measurement, mark it with a tab, turn the ruler, and half the paper that way. So now these 4 quadrants are measured exactly the same size because I halved it both ways. So that's the 4-quadrant method. Once you select if this is the method you're going to use, you have options in the size of the paper that you're drawing in. You could either keep this paper the same exact size, which is going to just be like computer paper, which is fine. So if you do that, you're again going to take your paper, take your ruler. Again, this is done in pencil. You're going to do the same exact technique. So you find the halfway point, you mark it with the tab, turn the ruler, draw the line vertically. Then you again measure, make sure your ruler is sitting flush with the top of the paper. Find your halfway point or with the 0. Remember, we need to make that sure that that's lined up correctly, and then draw this. So now these 4 quadrants are exactly the same exact size because the paper is exactly the same size. So if this is the layout I'm going for, using the 4 quadrants, for this submission on this assignment, I want you to take a picture of this exactly, your photograph with the 4 quadrants and your final paper with the 4 quadrants, and post that so that I can see that you're ready to start this project in this method. If you don't want to do a same size layout and you want to scale larger, that's fine too. Any larger paper will do. Guys, because my layout is vertical, I'm going to keep my actual paper vertical also. Even though it's larger, it does not matter. Now, the only thing is the sizing of where I heft this paper is going to change because the measurement is different. So I'm going to measure again this way. Fine, this is 12 inches, so half of 12 is 6. I'll mark that this way, turn my ruler vertically, draw the line down. And then I need to measure this paper also vertically to find the half. So the measurement of this paper is actually 18 inches long. So 18, half of 18 is 9. So I'll mark a tab, and then I'll turn the ruler horizontally. So now even though this paper is larger, I still have the same 4 quadrants. I know the quadrant size changes, so this is where you need to pay attention. If you're enlarging your scale, you kind of have to eyeball and say, all right, I have this much space between the top of the bottle to the top of the paper in this left size quadrant, so I want to kind of eyeball the same exact spot and kind of say, okay, my bottle is going to start about right there, and then when I look at where it finishes about halfway in the bottom right quadrant here, so that from here to here is where my now wine bottle is going to sit for that. So even though it looks larger, these quadrants are easier to kind of tackle because they are a smaller section. So if this was the option on what you wanted to choose for your layout, I want to see a photo of this. Your photograph with the 4 quadrants, your larger paper with the exact sizing of the 4 quadrants. The next option would be the grid method. So for the grid method, again, you want to have a photo that is printed. You are going to do 1 by 1 boxes. So for that, you need to create tab marks, and you need to make sure you're keeping your ruler straight so that your lines are straight and you have nice, solid vertical lines and nice, solid horizontal lines that are going in a nice direction. So for this to happen, you're going to place your ruler where the 0 or the edge of the ruler is lined up with the paper, and you're going to mark every inch. 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you'll turn your ruler around with those tabs. Guys, and to ensure straight lines, you should tab the top and the bottom of the paper, making sure that the measurements are in the same spot so that your lines are straight. So if you tab the bottom also, I can then turn my ruler and match top tab to bottom tab so that my lines are then guaranteed to be a straight line. Okay, so you'll do that this way all the way down vertically for each so that you get each one of these going in a vertical direction. Once you're done with the vertical, you're going to tab the same way vertically. So you hold your ruler vertically, you mark every inch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way down, every inch. Then you put your ruler on the other side, do the same thing. Again, this helps to make sure that your lines are straight. So you mark this all the way down also, every inch. And then what you'll do is match tab to tab, right to left, and basically connect the dots on each side. So you'll go across and you'll get, in the end, you'll get your grid to look like this. These should be 1 by 1 measurement boxes. So if the grid method is the method you are taking, you're going to measure 1 by 1 boxes, and then what you will do is you will take your paper, which you again have options for this also. You could do the same exact size scale. So the same photo paper that I had there, I'm going to use for this, and I'm going to, because this is the same size paper, I'm going to actually make the measurements the same exact size for the grid. So the same way I gridded The photograph, I'm going to do the same on this paper. So one by one across the top. Make sure my ruler's in the same place. At the bottom, one by one. So every inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to turn my ruler the other way. I'm going to place it tab by tab to ensure straight lines. And I'm going to draw my lines down. Each one, tab by tab, down the paper. Once I do all the vertical lines, I'm going to take my ruler still vertically, and I'm going to tab on the right and left side like I did on the photo, every inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I do the same on the other side. And then I'm going to take my ruler horizontally and match right side tab to left side tab to then grid out the other direction for the grid. So in the end, you're going to have your finished grid, which again is the same exact scale because the paper is the same exact size. 1 by 1s, also 1 by 1s. Now, before you start to actually get the drawing, remember when we did our gridded portraits, we had to label. So we would do A, B, C, D with letters across the top, and I do the same letters across the top here. A, B, C, all the way. And then I'd go down the bottom side of the left side with numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I would do the same here in these boxes. So this, again, is good for the reference so that I can look to say, all right, which section am I in exactly? And when I do that, I can say, all right, 9F is where the bottom of this jug should be. So I would go 9F. And then I follow that along. Guys, I know this is a lot more work for setup, but this will give you an exact copy of because you're dealing with smaller sections. So your transfer will be a lot more accurate. So you can do this as an option, same size paper, 1 by 1 boxes on both. Or you can scale larger. So with that, that is similar to the way we did our grid portraits. Your paper will be larger. So my photograph is still a 1 by 1 grid, but your larger paper, if you have, is going to be a 2 by 2 grid, which is doubling the size of the drawing. So for 2 by 2, you're basically doing the same concept, but this time you're going to measure every 2 inches. So you hold your ruler, and every 2 inches you mark the tab. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Tab the bottom also so that you ensure that you have straight lines. Guys, when you have larger paper and a smaller ruler, it's very important that you do this like top to bottom tab because the ruler is only going to make it so far. So it's actually better if you match tab to tab. Draw the line so that it's straight. And then you could kind of just use the ruler to get those bottom portions to the bottom and to the top, and at least you know that that midsection is straight, so the rest of this becomes straight for you. So you're going to go down match all the tabs so you get your vertical lines. And then once you do all vertical, you're going to hold your ruler vertically. Make sure that you're lined up correctly. You're going to mark every 2 going down. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I got to slide my ruler back down to the 0 and get the remainder of the paper. I'm going to do the same on the left side. So again, I ensure that my lines are going to be straight. And I know this is a lot of work for setup, but I promise that the transfer of your drawing becomes a lot easier with the grid. So you'll then do right to left across. So you want to have grid lines going horizontal, grid lines going vertical. So really, in the end, that's what you'll have. The only thing is with this, your paper size, because it's different and you doubled the squares, Mommy, you got to make sure that your number of the way you label this is labeled correctly. So I suggest you label the larger paper first with letters. So A, B, C, D, E, and F.